So if you're catching this live, wonderful, please feel free to ask any questions, or if not and you're catching the replay, then #replay and shoot any questions across that you might have. So I wanted to talk about the countries that are taking action on climate change and where Australia sits on that spectrum. So I've mentioned this before, that we are currently ranking 193 out of 193 countries from the UN member nations in terms of what action we are taking on climate change. But I know that that is about to change very quickly. And whether it's the exact change we need or very close to that, it's going to happen. And that is given that the upcoming COP26 is happening in November and Australia has signed up to the United Nations member list. And so we are going to be expected to make some big changes when we put forward our nationally determined contributions, which is a NDC. It's essentially a commitment that countries make under the United Nations in terms of their action on climate change and global emissions. And so the other thing that's going to change, or that's going to see a lot of change in Australia, is probably the upcoming elections that are in May of 2022. And so given the way that people have been speaking about climate change, there has been a rapid growth in the conversation and the dialogue and how it is expanding around climate change and circular economy and low carbon operations, everything that's related to this kind of aligned action on our environment. And so I think that that's going to see legislation shifts, it's going to see huge shifts in the market, and even at an individual level, we're going to see a lot of shifts. And so there are a handful of companies, and they're usually at the top of the ASX listed companies in Australia. And that handful of companies are taking the most progressive action towards climate change. And a lot of the times they are global companies, and there is a mandate internally for them to take action at a country level. But that aside, they are still taking very progressive and transparent action on climate change and really setting a high benchmark for the other companies to look towards. And so my view on this is that not only are they doing this, to obviously reduce their impact on the environment and reduce their impact on climate change, they are also doing this because there is economic value. But furthermore, they are also doing this because they are positioning competitively in a market that is favoring businesses that are climate diligent. In Australia itself, we have the Corporations Act, which ensures that companies that are being climate diligent are following coherently with what the Corporations Act expects of you. And so when your business is not doing that, you're already in violation of the Corporations Act. And so obviously this needs to be measured and transparent and publicly available information. And so that is only a starting point. Aside from that, when we see all of the shifts that are going to happen within our government, whether federally, statewide or locally, we're going to see a lot of policy that is supporting businesses that are taking action, whether it's on energy efficiency or emissions reduction or zero waste to landfill, or shifting towards a circular economy in terms of the resource usage and waste production. There is going to be a lot of shifts that I see coming up in Australia, and I am hopeful that it is in alignment with the global stage and that we really position strongly, which really means we have a lot to do to catch up, because saying it is one thing, and then the action that comes out the other end, the implementation roadmap, is another thing. And that's going to be a huge journey ahead for Australia, because the loose commitments that Australia has made around a 2050 net zero commitment is really far from where we need to be, which is really net zero by 2030. That is going to see true aligned global level action from Australia. And so I think what I wanted to get at here is, where does your business sit on that spectrum? And, are you looking at these companies that are doing so much in this space as a competitive crutch? which would be a really sad reality. Or, you know, instead, are you using this to empower your business and inspire your business? Use them as a, you know, a competitive benchmark. Where do you want to be? And how do you want to position even better than what they're doing in your competitive market, and give you guys the best advantage in this new sustainably focused market? Because businesses that are not aligned with sustainable action, not only will they struggle in this new market, I think that aside from that, they will struggle with, because for one, they will struggle in this new competitive market because of the supply chains and the demands from suppliers and distributors and manufacturers globally, demanding that the Australian counterparts are acting in the same way. And if they're not, they're potentially going to be cut off or reprimanded with some financial sanctions. We don't know. We don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but it's likely to predict that there's going to be some level of financial sanctions on Australia and across our trade agreements if we're not acting at the same level as our global counterparts and other UN member nations. So I think that it's an opportunity as a business to position ahead of your competitive market and take some action now, so that when these changes start to come into place, you're ready and you're not falling behind, because it's going to be a big catch up for a lot of companies. And you know, if your company doesn't want to be playing catch up and wants to position ahead and be progressive, be innovative, and embrace change, because change is good. You know, I recently commented on a post and I was saying that if you are scared by change or you're put off by change, then there's something deeply archaic about the cultural system or the value system from which you come from, whether it's your business or personally. Because change is wonderful. Change is scary, but it is definitely wonderful. And through the struggle of change and the transition, there is a beautiful destruction of the old and a invigorating and empowering new way of being. And so, you know, you can really benefit from that process and that journey of change. And so I think it's time to embrace that change and take an opportunity to position your business right ahead of your competitive market, and really not be left behind in playing a catch-up game while the rest of the companies are well ahead. So yeah, I hope this has been, you know, informative and hopefully inspiring. I love to talk to individuals and businesses about this. It's a really important topic, and yeah, please reach out, you know, if you have any questions. And of course, if you have any questions on this particular live, feel free to post them here or send them to me directly. Happy to answer your questions. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and talk to you